Alright guys, I want to welcome you all back to some more of The Great Ace Attorney 2. And as much as I'd like to say this trial continues, I know that's going to postpone for a bit because we might have to do a little bit more investigating. So hopefully we can go through that and see how it goes. So if anything else guys, I hope you all continue to enjoy watching, and let's keep it going. Alright guys, and we are back. What? It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph for the court. Of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see. And what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have. In a way that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. The clue that heavily suggests the real reason the balloon exploded is... I gotta point to it, right? Alright. Right here.
Take that!
The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally in the film. I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort. If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright line really is. Goodness, what is this? Undeniably some flash of light, yes. Oh golly, do you think it might be lightning? But it couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. A bolt of fire heading straight for the balloon? Like an arrow? Indeed, even to my aging eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some sort. My word! Are you suggesting that flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon?
Objection!
That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height.
Objection!
Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how that is exactly what did happen. What evidence? Oh, I have it. If such evidence exists, counsel, then for goodness sake, present it, man. Even the judge is like, yo, let's get to it, man. I'm very curious and interested. It's the crossbow.
Take that!
This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene. Good lord, is that a crossbow? An arrow dipped in oil and set alight could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon. Are you suggesting that crossbow was used to deliberately... Blimey, you're right! That streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosione of the balloon, it was... very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen gas inside it. No! Order! Order! Counsel, this is an extraordinary supposition. If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. The noise of the discharge. Of course. That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently. Well, yeah, if someone had shot a gun off in the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion there was a very big panic anyway, no? I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all of this, but something feels wrong.
Objection!
Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Nipponese friend? If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued... What? Wait a minute. What are you really saying here? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all, or what? My goodness me! Ah, now I understand. That's what that sinking feeling is about. I think there's a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along. What? Did I just hear that correctly, counsel? There's no going back now. The horse has bolted. Let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage and the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in the cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you'll all agree it's entirely plausible. Now, what I've just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day. Good grief!
Objection!
This is ludicrous. What you've described is no science experiment. It's child's play, a contemptible display of stage magic. Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said that the experiment was a scientific impossibility. In which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day. And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the crystal tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that? If I may put in a word, as a man of magic myself, such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3? All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman, and having this other man appear on stage to the front of the show as a body double. Yes, of course. So in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start.
Objection!
That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything inside it would have been scattered to the four winds when it exploded. No one would have ever embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend upon the mixture ratio. Juror number 4. Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. The mixture ratio? Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns. That would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent to render this whole obscene charade impossible. So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred. Well, goodness me. And if we accept that this is what happened, it means that the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant who was on stage in full view the entire time. This would be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lloyd Van Zieks can't credibly maintain that Professor Harebrain is a suspect now. Uh-oh. Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts, thank you. Professor! But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry? What's all this about, Mr. Harebrain? I, Albert Harebrain, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Odie Asman. Yes, it was me, with my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver. What are you doing? I know why he's doing this too. Order! 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 Defendant, explain this sudden confession.
Objection!
Professor Harebrain, what are you talking about? It's what I said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick, all an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? No, you have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would all be over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the dignity of it. It's clear that you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. it's quite conceivable that you were... Barrack! Yes? I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever you say. I'll swear it. So please, ensure the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. No lie, guys, that was a mouthful. Oh my gosh, here we go again. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice at this critical juncture. Here's to my learned Nipponese friend. What? And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense's position in light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed, and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. Well, counsel, what is the defense's official position on the matter? What Professor Harebrain and my client actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence, or do I uphold my client's request but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind? Mr. Naruhodo! There's no escape here. I have to make a choice. But it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something. But what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact... a proper scientific invention. No, I can't say it. My client placed his faith in me. I can't just let him down. What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long. Susato-san! But what Hiya! My first Susato takedown in 6 months! There'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working out not what I have to give up on, but what I can protect. Professor Harebrain! Yes! Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you built with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must both pursue now. So, you finally opened your eyes. What? And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Having heard my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say? Barrack! Lord Van Zeeks. Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. In truth, there is one thing. Something I've remembered that's of relevance. What? On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man, holding that crossbow. I beg your pardon? Professor, did the man have any distinguishing features? What did he look like? Taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter and whiter than mine. Let me see. One less lens than me, too. A monocle. A rather stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular will help to positively identify the man. You see, I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention. What? He built the machine? That's right. Mr. Asman introduced him to me a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. Enoch Drebber. Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered. Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. The man's an abomination. Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he? I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of this nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but staged trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal goes after the government's research grant money. When magicians are in need of money, I have heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Drebber's name before. The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Drebber for you. So it's true then. My invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion. Considering what we just heard about Mr. Drebber's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely. Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted. Which is why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume. I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, than a work of deception, then everything I worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at that prospect. So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Drebber. I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it. It's entirely possible that Mr. Asman and Mr. Drebber were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money. When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. Oh, hold on a second. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Drebber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore. Man, I really feel bad for him though. He really wanted his invention to work. Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? Yes. Please go ahead. I'm very sorry. It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Van Zeeks, my lord, the court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical. Yes, Mr. Drebber. Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena. With pleasure, my lord. Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing and one thing alone from you. Evidence. The defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused. I understand. Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. Oh man, I can't believe Chisato's back. I'm happy. 23rd of October, 1:36 p.m., the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, yes. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. You were right. I tricked you. You trusted me. I dragged you into my mess. Oh, how did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry. Did you really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Drebber was really up to, I mean? About what he was really constructing? Naturally, that machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis, of all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it. Alright, in that case, I won't say any more. Now, sadly the murder accusation against you still stands, so we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow. Well, thank you for doing so much for me. I'm so sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo. Try this again. Yep, okay. Arriving late? Did you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I arrived. Postcard? What postcard? I hid it from you, Runo, so it would be a surprise. Well, did it work? I was surprised, alright, especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it sort of slipped out. Maybe we could stick to a more traditional displays of emotion in the future? Susie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see. But we made the coachman really whip the horse's heart so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the galley for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Oh, having you at my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So, I'm, delighted to see you back in London. Oh, you're too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So, what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikotoba not protest? Let's save all that conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion. Oh, Iris! How wonderful! I can't wait! Sato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take another extraordinary turn. Alright all, I'm gonna have to end the video here for today. Thank you guys for watching, and as usual, until the next one.